Listen, guys, so what's the context behind trauma and abuse? Why would I take 7,000 plus hours to study the nature behind something that is so fundamental to so many humans' lives? Maybe the answer's in that question itself. So let's zoom out, right? We'll go into a little story, which is a common theme in humanity currently. Many of us don't have fathers. Many of us don't have the real structure of education and parenting. You know, it probably should be innate, but we'll look into what prevents that natural love, that natural compassion from occurring. Why don't we have families and parents and educational systems which are founded from a strong place, from a true place, right? So here we're looking at my life, Justin's reality, which is, hey, I grew up with a father who was not a bad man, could not label him that. But all I can say is that he was confused, that he was coming from a certain place. And that's what we're going to get into today, is where does trauma and abuse come from, right? A place of confusion. And when we look at confusion, can I be confused if we're not stuck in the diabolical nature, which is rumination, which is thinking in relationship to a memory, to an experience, to a desire, whether it's the past or the future. That's the core here. But we'll step back, right? We see the main point, and now let's make it clear. The main point of, can there be any suffering without that sequence which I just explained? The thinking, the rumination. Can there be any suffering without that occurring? Now, some may say, well, what do you mean? We have to think, don't we? Right? We have to go to work. We have to build, continue the roads, make sure the electricity, all the repairs get done, the maintenance occurs, we pay our bills, etc. But is there a way? Is there a way to live this life where we become free from the root of all suffering, which is that rumination, that thinking, whether it's in relationship to a trauma, a abuse of a past experience via memory? Can't have that without thought. Or is it a excitement, an enthusiasm, a chasing of goals, which is still that rumination? Now, it may not be the same exact essence of rumination, but if you'll be patient with me, you'll see clearly that whether it's enthusiastic chasing of pleasure and goals and expectations, or a diabolical rumination upon suffering, you'll see that the structure there is the same, and that none of that can actually unfold without thought. So now we're getting into the place of, okay, how do we live in this world? How do we do what we're meant to do without thought? And gently, naturally, it's not by chasing a place of non-thinking, but by seeing so clearly the limitation, the pain, the suffering derived via the future or past thinking in relationship to memory, experiences, or expectations. When you see that so clearly, that there cannot be any pain, any suffering without that, even if it's physical, right? If it's physical, let's say you scraped your knee or you twisted your ankle. If you can have the awareness, the capacity, the insight that thought leads to suffering, past, future thought, then in that moment, you can catch yourself thinking about the past, which is the moment you're thinking about your twisted ankle is not the ankle being twisted. You just started ruminating. So if you can address that the moment it arises and see that, sure, maybe physically the ankle is in pain, but it's just a twisted ankle. Or even if it's a broken leg, well, the leg's broken. Is ruminating and thinking about it going to help? Now, this might be a tough fact, right? Might be a hard fact. But that's the question. You break your leg, and then you start thinking about, oh my gosh, I broke my leg. What's going to happen? Future thought. Is it the leg breaking itself which creates most of the pain? Or is it the rumination attached to the thought? Right? Rumination, thought. Is it the rumination and thought in relationship to the leg being broken and all of the future things which you may miss out on? That is the pain. Because the moment you break your leg, you broke your leg. Maybe that's not preferred. But what's a preference? Where does a preference come from? A thought. So all that being said, I'm not implying that you won't live a life where Justin, or your sense of self, is integrated into the life. What I am implying is that there cannot be any true suffering or pain without rumination or thought in relation to past or future. So, with that being said, what can we do? There's a way of living so abundantly, so aligned, that you know what you need to do every day. You know what brings you into the place of alignment. And that place of alignment is the unoccupied mind, the mind free of past or future thought. And when you're in the unoccupied mind, you'll still be acting. That is the action. Because as you do this, you take it seriously, you'll start to realize that the unoccupied mind will guide you. The unoccupied mind becomes the source of your action. And therefore that action is more strategic, it's wiser, more intelligent than had you been acting in relation to rumination or thought. Because when you create the space for the unoccupied mind, by living in a healthy way, right? You get your sleep, you do your exercise, you stretch, and, you have clean nutrition. Then, what happens? You have an excess of energy. When you follow the fundamentals and you have an excess of energy, the main action is so simple. All you have to do is notice your thinking. When you participate in this game, this serious game of noticing your thinking, observing, feeling, hearing the movements of the ego, of thought, you get led to a place you'll have an insight, potentially, you'll have an insight into the nature of the unoccupied mind. And this unoccupied mind is so clear, so precise, that you'll be able to move through your life and enjoy it. You'll be able to truly be alive, have such an abundance of energy, to see things so clearly, to become so vulnerable that you're not vulnerable anymore. So open that you're just strong. Some people say to me, I don't know, you're so open. Like the way you speak, the conversations we have, the things you share. How do you do it? Something like that. Don't massage me too much. My point is that this is not Justin. It's not about me. How do you get to this place where compassion is the root of your living? You have an insight into the diabolical nature of self-centered, self-conscious thought, past, future, memory, experience, expectation. you see that so clearly, you start to see what we are at the core. Oh man, I'm not a human doing. I'm not a human having. My status, my lawyer, my Lambo, all of that isn't necessarily important. I'm not saying you can't earn things. I'm not saying you can't have a beautiful house. But I am saying the way in which you live moment to moment, there's nothing more true than that. You know, if you're rushing, if you're judging others, if you think thoughts of that nature, it's time to become aware of the fact that you are not the program, that all your beliefs, your opinions, your thoughts, your memories, your experiences, I won't go as far to say they're irrelevant, because they do play a role in your specific journey. But the truth is that you will only truly write your story when you see through the self, when you see through the limitations created by the me and the I. So I can talk to you about Justin's life. I can tell you stories. But Justin isn't important. What's important, what we seriously have to see, is that there's a way of living where you truly understand that how you relate to yourself and how you relate to others is all that matters. And if you become so sensitive with this energy, with this capacity to notice your thinking, that energy, that sensitivity, it leads you to a place to notice, to look at yourself, to know thyself. And when you do this, you'll begin to see how one does create division in this world. And you'll see clearly that nothing's more important than than being that ripple, which is not divisive, which is soothing, which is clear, which is truthful and accurate, simple. Now, all I'm saying here, it might not seem simple, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't have to be complex either. You cannot chase this. You cannot avoid this. But we have to have the courage. It all starts with courage to look at ourselves and to start to question with a bit of skepticism. Who am I? Who am I? I understand, sure, I'm Justin. My dad was blank. I grew up on Park Ave in Torrington in Connecticut. I enjoy basketball, football. I get all that. But who am I? Who are you? Who are we? What are we? And if you're at all honest, if you're at all courageous, you'll see clearly that the tides come in and out, that the animals are both diabolical. Big animal destroys small animal, and beautiful. A couple days ago, a chipmunk, my sister recorded it. Chipmunk comes out of its hole in our garden, runs along our patio, perimeters, like a soldier, not wanting to be seen. The chipmunk goes around the perimeter. My dog's laying there asleep by the door. I have a picture. The chipmunk is literally on my dog's this thumb. I can't do that. But the chipmunk peeks its head, puts its paws on my dog's back, and just peeks over. What does that mean? The chipmunk played something with my dog. The chipmunk played a prank on my dog. Did the chipmunk family dare him to do that? Something like that. My point is here that all life comes down to is your capacity to understand energy and to use that energy to notice your internal. When you study that, when you get clear on that rumination, that thought, that there cannot be suffering without thought, future, past, things get clear. Decisions dissipate, right? What's clarity? Clarity is a lack of, you don't have to make decisions when you see things clearly. That's what we're talking about here. How to live in a way where you see things clearly, where you are your own compass. And that noticing of friction, that noticing of division, that noticing of self-conscious thought, that's the devil. That's division. And as we become more aware, more sensitive, we start to understand what we are at the core, that energy. And also we don't have a core. So I'm using that gently. There's a core. There's an essence. That essence is energy, but I won't say that we have a core. We don't have a core. It's holistic, ubiquitous. My grandpa used to grab my leg, claw, and I had to say the word quickly. I don't think it's a coincidence. He would go, ubiquitous, what's it mean? Grab, I'm like, seems to be everywhere at once. You think that's a coincidence? I don't know, maybe. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You can't force this stuff. You can't chase it. All you can do is see so clearly the place in which suffering and pain is derived from. When you do that, that's all she wrote, It's either you avoid, you suppress, you run from what's true. The trap of the ego is so sharp, or you give the demon your head. And you know what's funny? When you give the demon your head, metaphorically speaking, he says, oh yeah, I don't want it. I don't want it. Go find yourself, is what he says. The demons of life, they seem to be demons, but they're happening for you. It's all happening for you. If you're in a place of, suffering, pain, anxiety, stress, it's time to use it. That juice, which is pain, it's a gift. And I know it might be hard to see, but if you just look at that fact, which is you can't have suffering without rumination or thought, and you start to understand how thought wastes energy, and how that pressure, okay. Time for me to end the video. I hear my alarm. Have a great day. If you're on YouTube, I'd appreciate a like. Let me know what you enjoyed. Gratitude, absolutely. And if you enjoyed this, if you want to read the daily letters, I write a newsletter every day. Subscribe below in description. Let's go.